In the early months of 2025, the global economic stage was set for another confrontation. The United States, under President Trump, reignited a trade dispute with China. Citing national security concerns and persistent trade imbalances, Washington announced a new sweeping set of tariffs on Chinese imports in February. This move was a familiar tactic, part of a strategy that assumed the U.S. held the stronger hand. The logic was simple. As the world's largest consumer market, the U.S. believed it could dictate terms. However, China's response this time was different. It chose not to escalate with a symmetrical tariff war. Instead, Beijing opted for a more subtle, yet powerful strategy. It decided to use its immense buying power as a weapon, a quiet economic maneuver that would unfold without a single shot being fired, but with devastating precision. China's counteroffensive was multifaceted, but its central pillar was the strategic redirection of its purchases. The government didn't need to enact formal bans or tariffs. It simply signaled to its state-owned enterprises and private companies that it was time to find new suppliers. The most dramatic move was the near-complete halt of new U.S. soybean purchases. China was historically the largest single customer for American soybeans, often buying more than half of the entire U.S. export crop. When this spigot was turned off, the effect was immediate and profound. The message was clear: access to China's market was a privilege that could be withdrawn. As China closed its doors to American farmers, it opened them wider to others. Brazilian soybean farmers found themselves with a sudden, massive new customer. Argentina, which suspended export taxes, saw its exports surge. Brazil exceeded historical exports by over 10% per month, while Argentina's soybean exports grew by more than 21%. The decision to target soybeans was no accident. It was a calculated political strike aimed at the heart of President Trump's base. Soybeans aren't grown in East or West Coast cities. They are the lifeblood of rural America: Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Indiana, Nebraska. These states form the core of the Republican electoral map. By halting soybean purchases, China wasn't just manipulating a market. It was applying direct pressure on the voters who put the president in office, a political move disguised as a commercial one. The geography of soybean production made soybeans the perfect political weapon. When prices collapse in the Farm Belt, pain radiates outward fast. Farmers, seed suppliers, equipment dealers, grain elevator operators, local banks. China's leaders understood this perfectly. They knew calls from desperate constituents would flood Washington. The economic consequences of China's soybean embargo were swift and severe. Almost overnight, soybean futures prices collapsed. Farmers who had planted expecting profit faced selling at a loss. The drop was catastrophic, threatening the solvency of thousands of farms. Price depression tied directly to the trade war rippled across agriculture. Warehouses filled to capacity as farmers held onto crops. Storing massive quantities is expensive and risky. The crops can spoil, while storage costs erase value. Financial stress hit rural lenders hard. Payments on land, seed, and equipment were missed. Delinquencies rose, and farm bankruptcies surged by about 50%. The pain was real and accelerating. Political pressure intensified from farm states, pushing for relief and a policy shift. By the summer of 2025, the pressure was too intense to ignore. Stories of ruin in the Farm Belt and lobbying from powerful businesses created a political firestorm. The year began confrontational, but the position became untenable. Officials signaled a shift. Negotiations to de-escalate began in earnest. The result, a partial rollback of tariffs. China had used economic leverage to force change. Both sides framed it as a win. The U.S. suspended some tariffs. China suspended retaliatory measures and committed to resume buying U.S. agriculture, pledging at least 12 million metric tons of soy in the last 2 months of 2025, with larger annual commitments through 2028. The lesson was unmistakable. Buyer power can subdue a trade war.